They told you success wakes up at 5 a.m. But what if I told you success wakes up when you do, with purpose, discipline, and fire in your soul? People have become obsessed with the clock. They treat 5 a.m. like it's some kind of secret door to success, as if greatness is waiting on the other side of that specific hour. But the truth is, time itself has no power unless you bring something to it. You can wake up at 5 a.m. and still waste your morning. You can hit snooze, scroll your phone, drift through your routine, and call it discipline just because you woke up early. But that's not discipline, that's illusion. The real question isn't when you wake up, it's who you become the moment you open your eyes. Mindset is the foundation of every meaningful action. If your mind is unfocused, negative, or distracted, waking up early won't magically fix that. You'll just carry that same energy into a different hour of the day. A strong mindset means waking up with intention. It means having clarity about what you want and why it matters. When your mindset is sharp, even a later start can be powerful. But without that mental alignment, even the earliest morning becomes empty time. Motion without direction, effort without purpose. There's a difference between waking up and rising up. Waking up is physical, it's automatic. Rising up is mental, it's deliberate. It's the decision to take ownership of your day before the world starts pulling you in different directions. That decision doesn't depend on a specific hour. It depends on awareness. When you rise with purpose, you're not reacting to life, you're shaping it. You're not waiting for motivation to show up. You're bringing energy into the moment because you've trained your mind to lead, not follow. The mindset you carry into your morning determines the quality of everything that follows. If you start your day feeling rushed, scattered, or already behind, that feeling spreads into your work, your conversations, your decisions. But if you start with focus and control, you create momentum. You begin to move with intention instead of hesitation. And that momentum doesn't come from waking up early. It comes from mental preparation. It comes from deciding before the day even begins that you're going to show up fully no matter what time it is. Many people chase the idea of early mornings because it feels like a shortcut. It feels like if they can just force themselves into a specific routine, success will follow. But success doesn't respond to shortcuts. It responds to consistency and self-awareness. A powerful mindset doesn't need a trend to function. It doesn't rely on what everyone else is doing. It's built on understanding your own rhythm, your own goals, and your own responsibilities. When you align your actions with that understanding, your mornings become meaningful, regardless of the hour. At the end of the day, the clock is just a tool. It can guide you, but it cannot define you. What defines you is how you think, how you respond, and how you choose to use the time you have. When you stop worshiping the idea of a perfect wake-up time and start focusing on building a strong, disciplined mindset, everything changes. You become less concerned with proving something to others and more focused on improving yourself. And that shift, that internal transformation, is where real growth begins. Motivation is loud in the beginning. It shows up with energy, excitement, and big promises. It makes you feel like you can conquer anything, like this time will be different, like nothing can stop you. But motivation is temporary. It fades the moment things get uncomfortable. It disappears when you're tired, when results are slow, when life gets heavy. And if you rely on motivation alone, you'll find yourself starting over again and again, stuck in a cycle of bursts and burnout. That's why discipline matters. It doesn't depend on how you feel. Discipline is quiet. It doesn't make announcements. It doesn't wait for the perfect mood or the right conditions. It simply shows up again and again, regardless of the circumstances. When your alarm goes off and your body feels heavy, motivation will tell you to rest. Discipline will tell you to rise. When distractions pull at your attention, motivation will fade, but discipline will keep you locked in. It's not glamorous and it's not always exciting, but it's reliable. And in the long run, reliability beats intensity every single time. The truth is, most people don't fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because they lack consistency. They wait to feel ready before they act. They wait for motivation to give them permission. But discipline doesn't ask for permission. It operates on commitment. It's built through repetition, through doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. And over time, that repetition creates strength. It builds a version of you that doesn't break under pressure or fold under discomfort. There's power in doing the hard things when no one is watching. Not for applause, not for recognition, but because you made a decision and you're honoring it. Discipline turns small actions into habits, and habits into identity. At first, it feels forced. You have to push yourself, remind yourself, sometimes even argue with yourself. But eventually, it becomes part of who you are. You don't negotiate with your goals anymore. You execute. You don't rely on motivation. You rely on standards. Discipline also creates freedom, even though it feels restrictive at first. When you commit to a routine, when you hold yourself accountable, you remove the chaos from your life. You spend less time deciding and more time doing. You eliminate excuses because you've already made the choice. That clarity frees up your mental energy, allowing you to focus on growth instead of constant internal battles. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent enough that progress becomes inevitable. In the end, motivation might get you started, but discipline is what carries you through. It's what keeps you moving on the days when everything feels slow, when results aren't visible, when doubt starts creeping in. Discipline is what separates those who talk about goals from those who achieve them. It's not about how inspired you feel. It's about how committed you are. And when discipline becomes your foundation, success stops being a possibility and starts becoming a pattern. The way you begin your morning doesn't just start your day, it sets a direction. Before the world gets loud, before notifications flood your attention, before responsibilities start pulling you in every direction, there is a window of time that belongs only to you. That window is powerful. It's where you decide whether you're going to lead your day or be led by it. Most people give that time away without realizing it. They wake up and immediately react, checking their phones, responding to messages, letting external noise dictate their internal state. And just like that, the day is no longer theirs. Owning your morning means taking control before anything else can. It means being intentional about how you spend those first moments after waking up. Instead of drifting into the day, you step into it with purpose. You choose actions that build you instead of distract you. That could be reflection, planning, learning, movement. Anything that aligns with your growth. The key is not what you do, but that you do it consciously. Because when your morning starts with intention, your entire day begins to move with structure and clarity. There's a reason the first hour feels so important. It's when your mind is most impressionable. Whatever you feed it in that time tends to shape your mood, your focus, and your energy. If you fill it with noise, comparison, and distraction, you carry that scattered energy forward. But if you fill it with discipline, focus, and self-direction, you create momentum. That momentum becomes your advantage. It allows you to approach challenges with a steady mindset instead of a reactive one. You're not catching up. You're already in motion. Owning your morning also builds self-respect. Every time you follow through on your intentions, you reinforce trust in yourself. You prove that your goals matter, that your time is valuable, that you are capable of leading your own life. And that feeling carries weight. It shows up in how you make decisions, how you handle pressure, how you show up in your responsibilities. When you start your day with control, you don't easily lose it. You've already established a standard for yourself, and that standard becomes your baseline. It's important to understand that owning your morning doesn't mean copying someone else's routine. It's not about perfection or rigid schedules. It's about alignment. Your morning should reflect your priorities, your goals, and your lifestyle. What matters is that you're not operating on autopilot. You're choosing your actions instead of defaulting to habits that don't serve you. When your morning aligns with your purpose, even simple actions become meaningful. They stop being chores and start becoming steps forward. Over time, these intentional mornings compound into something bigger. They shape your mindset, your discipline, and your overall direction in life. You begin to notice that you're less reactive, more focused, more in control. You stop feeling like the day is happening to you, and instead, you feel like you're actively shaping it. That's the real power of owning your morning. It extends far beyond those first few hours. It becomes a way of living where you lead with intention, act with clarity, and move through life with purpose. Everyone loves the idea of a breakthrough, the moment where everything changes overnight, where success suddenly appears and life shifts in an instant. But real growth doesn't work like that. It's not built in dramatic leaps. It's built in quiet, repeated actions that most people overlook. Consistency is what turns effort into progress and progress into results. It's not exciting in the beginning, and it rarely gets attention, but it's the force that builds something solid over time. Without it, even the best intentions fall apart. The problem is consistency doesn't feel powerful when you're in the middle of it. It feels small. It feels repetitive. It feels like you're doing the same things over and over without seeing immediate results. That's where most people give up. They mistake slow progress for no progress. They look for quick wins instead of trusting the process. But consistency isn't about instant rewards. It's about long-term transformation. It's about understanding that every small action is a deposit, and over time, those deposits create something meaningful. There's strength in showing up on the ordinary days. Not just when you're motivated, not just when everything is going well, but when things feel average or even difficult. That's where consistency proves itself. It's easy to take action when you're inspired. It's harder when you're tired, distracted, or unsure. But those are the moments that matter the most. Because every time you show up anyway, you reinforce a habit. You build resilience. You teach yourself that your commitment is stronger than your circumstances. Consistency also builds trust, not just with others, but within yourself. When you repeatedly follow through on what you say you'll do, you begin to believe in your own discipline. You stop doubting whether you'll stick with something because you've already proven it through action. That internal trust is powerful. It removes hesitation. It gives you confidence to take on bigger challenges, knowing that you have the ability to stay the course. And that confidence isn't based on luck or talent. It's built through repeated effort. Another thing about consistency is that it compounds quietly. At first, the results are almost invisible. You might not notice a big difference after a few days or even a few weeks. But over time, those small efforts start to stack. They create momentum. They make tasks easier, habits stronger, and progress more noticeable. Eventually, what once felt difficult becomes natural, and what once felt small becomes significant. That's the power of consistency. It transforms effort into something that grows beyond your expectations. In the end, consistency is what separates those who start from those who finish. Anyone can begin something with excitement, but not everyone has the patience to continue when that excitement fades. Real power comes from staying committed, from trusting the process even when it's slow, from understanding that success is not built in a single moment, but in repeated actions over time. When you embrace consistency, you stop chasing quick results and start building something lasting. And that's where real strength is formed. There's a kind of power most people overlook because it doesn't make noise. It doesn't demand attention, and it doesn't compete for validation. It exists in the quiet moments, the early hours, the spaces where distractions haven't yet taken over. Silence is often misunderstood as emptiness, but in reality, it's where clarity begins. When everything around you slows down, your thoughts become sharper, your focus becomes stronger, and your awareness deepens. In a world that constantly pulls at your attention, silence becomes an advantage. Most people are so used to noise that they feel uncomfortable without it. They fill every moment with something: music, notifications, conversations, endless scrolling, anything to avoid stillness. But in doing that, they lose connection with their own thoughts. They move through life reacting instead of reflecting. Silence, on the other hand, forces you to face yourself. It gives you space to think, to evaluate, to understand where you are and where you're going. And that kind of awareness is powerful because it allows you to act with intention instead of impulse. When you embrace silence, you start to notice things you normally miss. Ideas come more naturally. Problems become clearer. Decisions feel less overwhelming because you're not processing 100 different inputs at once. That quiet space becomes a place where your mind can organize itself. Instead of being scattered, your thoughts begin to align. And when your thoughts are aligned, your actions become more precise. You waste less energy, make fewer mistakes, and move with a sense of direction that noise can never provide. Silence also strengthens your focus. In a distracted environment, it's easy to start something and lose track of it within minutes. Your attention gets pulled in different directions, and your productivity suffers because of it. But when you remove the noise, you remove those interruptions. You give yourself the opportunity to go deeper into your work, to stay present with what you're doing, and to actually make progress. That level of focus is rare, and because it's rare, it becomes valuable. It allows you to produce better results in less time, simply because your mind isn't constantly divided. There's also a certain confidence that comes from being comfortable in silence. You stop needing constant validation or external stimulation. You become more grounded, more self-aware, more in control of your emotions. Instead of being influenced by everything around you, you start operating from within. That inner stability shows up in how you carry yourself, how you make decisions, and how you handle pressure. You're not easily shaken because you've built a connection with your own thoughts, and that connection gives you strength. In the end, silence is not something to avoid. It's something to use. It's a tool that helps you think clearly, focus deeply, and act intentionally. While others are caught up in noise and distraction, you have the opportunity to step into a space where growth can actually happen. It doesn't require anything special, just the willingness to pause, to disconnect, and to be present with yourself. And in that space, you'll often find what you've been looking for all along: clarity, direction, and control. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to follow someone else's blueprint for success as if it were universal. They look at routines, habits, and systems that worked for others and assume those same patterns will automatically work for them. But success is not a one-size-fits-all formula. What fits one life may not fit another. Different goals, different responsibilities, different energy levels, all of these factors matter. When you ignore that and blindly copy someone else's path, you often end up forcing yourself into a system that doesn't truly align with who you are. Defining your own winning formula starts with self-awareness. You have to understand your strengths, your weaknesses, your natural rhythms, and your priorities. When do you think most clearly? When do you have the most energy? What kind of environment allows you to focus? These are questions only you can answer. And once you start paying attention, you begin to see patterns. You begin to realize that your productivity doesn't come from following trends. It comes from working in a way that suits your own nature. That awareness becomes your foundation. There's also a level of honesty required in this process. It's easy to pretend that a certain routine works for you because it sounds impressive or looks disciplined from the outside, But if it constantly drains you, if it feels forced, if it leads to inconsistency, then it's not your formula. It's just an imitation. Real growth comes from being honest about what actually helps you move forward. That doesn't mean avoiding discomfort. It means choosing challenges that are meaningful, not ones that are imposed by comparison. When you define your own system, you take ownership of your progress. You're no longer dependent on external validation or trends to guide your actions. Instead of asking, what is everyone else doing? You start asking, what works best for me? That shift is powerful because it puts you in control. You stop chasing perfection and start building something sustainable. And sustainability is what leads to long-term success because it allows you to stay consistent without burning out. Your winning formula should also evolve over time. What works for you today might not work a year from now, and that's not failure, it's growth. As your goals change and your life shifts, your systems need to adapt. Staying rigid can hold you back just as much as having no structure at all. The key is to remain aware and willing to adjust. Keep what works, refine what doesn't, and continue building a routine that supports the person you are becoming. Ultimately, defining your own winning formula is about alignment. It's about bringing your habits, your mindset, and your actions into harmony with your purpose. When everything is aligned, progress feels more natural. You're not constantly fighting against yourself. You're moving with intention. And that's where real momentum begins. Not in copying others, not in following trends, but in creating a system that is uniquely yours and committing to it with consistency and clarity. And when it's all said and done, you'll realize something most people never do. It was never about the hour on the clock. It was never about chasing someone else's routine. It was never about looking the part. It was about becoming it. Because the real shift happens the moment you stop waiting for the perfect time and start taking control of the time you already have. That's where everything changes. When your mindset is locked in, when your discipline is unshakable, when your mornings are intentional, when your actions are consistent, when you learn to use silence, and when you finally build a system that works for you.